"Daddy, she said you never come for Christmas anyway." Sophia whispered the words while folding the small blanket the twins had used, unaware that at that exact moment, William was parking his black BMW in the mansion's garage. The sentence hung in the frigid December air, mixing with the distant sound of church bells playing carols. Her hands trembled, not from the cold, but from an ache that had long since become part of her, like a scar that never fully heals. She just wanted to be seen, but she had given up on that impossible dream long ago. Snow was beginning to fall outside, thick, slow flakes sticking to the triple-paned windows of the 8,600-square-foot mansion. The 13-foot Christmas tree dominated the great room, decorated with red and gold bulbs that reflected the flames in the fireplace, creating dancing shadows on the white marble walls. The smell of roasting turkey wafted from the industrial-grade kitchen, mixed with the sweet aroma of cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg that Mrs. Davis had spread throughout the house. Garlands of fresh pine, intertwined with golden lights, framed every window, blinking in a soft rhythm like the heartbeat of a house pretending to be alive. William Blackwood killed the engine and sat, staring at the illuminated facade as if seeing the house for the first time, or perhaps the last. At 45, he was the perfect image of a successful businessman, graying hair slicked back, a navy blue Armani suit, a Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, marking exactly 6:43 p.m. He had built a real estate empire, erecting skyscrapers that redefined the city skyline, signing $300 million contracts without blinking. But at that moment, looking at his own home through the fogging windshield, he felt strangely small, as if he were about to enter enemy territory. He had cancelled Dubai. $300 million in contracts tossed in the trash because a voice inside him, a voice he hadn't heard since before Marianne died, had said no with frightening firmness. His partners had called 17 times in the last 6 hours, furious, incredulous, desperate, but he had turned off his phone and locked it in the glove compartment. It was Christmas Eve, and he had a family waiting for him, or at least that's what he wanted to believe. For the first time in 4 years, he would be present for Christmas dinner, and that decision terrified him more than any failed negotiation. The biting December cold hit him when he opened the car door, the frigid air burning his lungs and carrying the scent of pine and damp earth from the woods behind the property. His Italian leather shoes touched the heated garage floor, German technology that kept the floor at a constant 73 degrees, even with snow outside. The garage held 8 vehicles: his BMW, Isabella's Mercedes SUV, the Porsche he rarely drove, and 2 collection cars covered in grey tarps. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything empty, as if luxury and loneliness were twins sharing the same DNA. As he entered through the service hallway, William stopped abruptly. The sound of children's laughter drifted from the second floor, high and joyful, interrupted by a female voice he didn't immediately recognize. It wasn't Isabella, whose voice, always one pitch higher than necessary, he would know anywhere. This voice was different, soft, patient, carrying a tenderness that seemed genuine rather than performative. "Michael, watch the tower. It's going to fall," the voice said, followed by giggles that echoed down the halls. Had Isabella hired a new nanny? Why hadn't she mentioned anything? And William climbed the main staircase silently, each marble step cold beneath his feet, his hand sliding along the polished mahogany banister as his heart accelerated for no apparent reason. The walls were covered in expensive contemporary art that said nothing beyond its price tag, and silver-framed family photos that looked like toothpaste commercials. He passed the photo of his wedding to Isabella Both, smiling with artificial perfection, and the portraits of the newborn twins. Then his eyes landed on something that made him stop, a frame turned toward the wall, hidden behind a decorative vase. He reached out and turned the frame around. It was an old photo of him with Sophia. Shea was about 7, the two of them at the beach, she on his lap, both soaked with seawater and absurdly happy. The glass of the frame had a fine crack running across the girl's smiling face, as if someone had slammed the picture against something hard. When had this photo been hidden? By whom? And why? William felt his stomach clench, a wave of nausea rising in his throat as a question began to form in his mind, a question he was afraid to answer. "Aunt Sophia, are you staying with us for Christmas?" Helen's high-pitched voice cut through the silence like a knife. Aunt Sophia. William's heart skipped a beat, then two, then began to hammer against his ribs with brutal force. It couldn't be Sophia. She was at college, in the apartment near campus that he paid for, busy with exams and projects. That's what Isabella always said when he asked. "She's fine, darling, just busy. You know how college students are." But that childish voice had just said, "Aunt Sophia," and suddenly the air felt too thick to breathe. William took 3 quick steps and stopped at the doorway of the twins' room, and what he saw made him grip the doorframe so tightly his knuckles turned white. A young woman was sitting on the carpet, her back to him, brown hair pulled into a simple ponytail, wearing faded jeans and a worn-out white t-shirt. She was assembling a Christmas puzzle with Michael and Helen, her soft voice narrating the scene as the children touched her with absolute familiarity, blind trust. The golden light from the lamp created a bubble of intimacy that felt too sacred to disturb. And then she turned her face in profile to grab another box of pieces, and William's world fell apart. It was Marianne's green eyes looking back at him from Sophia's face. "Sophia?" The word left William's mouth as a strangled whisper, more question than statement, carrying a universe of confusion he couldn't process. He took a step into the room, and the movement happened in slow motion, every millisecond dragging as his brain desperately tried to make sense of the impossible image before him. The Christmas lights in the window flashed in intermittent patterns, illuminating and hiding Sophia's face as if she were flickering between existing and disappearing. The only sound was his own heavy breathing and the ticking of the train-shaped wall clock the twins adored. Sophia froze, her fingers still holding a star-shaped puzzle piece, her entire body going rigid as if she'd received an electric shock. She didn't turn her head completely, didn't answer, didn't move. She simply ceased to exist for 3 full seconds, like a paused recording. Then her shoulders slumped in a resignation that seemed ancient, trained by repetition, and a tear slid down her left cheek before she even blinked. The tear traced the dimple William remembered kissing when she was little, leaving a glistening track that reflected the light from the moon-shaped lamp. She swallowed hard, her throat moving visibly with the Herculean effort to contain the sob that threatened to escape and shatter the illusion of control. Her eyes, those green eyes identical to Marianne's, the woman William had loved and lost 8 years ago, filled with water like glasses under an open tap. But she forced herself to look away, fixing her gaze on the plush carpet as if every fiber was worthy of intense scientific study. For a moment, her lips parted, trembled. It looked like words might come, perhaps an explanation, perhaps an accusation, perhaps a cry for help. But nothing came out but silent air, and she closed her mouth again, biting her lower lip hard enough to leave a white mark. The shame was palpable in the air, heavy and suffocating like smoke from a fire, poisoning every cubic inch of oxygen in the children's room. "Grandpa William! Grandpa!" Michael exploded from the floor with the chaotic energy of a 4-year-old who doesn't understand adult tension, running toward William with arms outstretched and a huge smile. Helen followed her twin immediately, her blonde curls bouncing as she shouted, "Grandpa's home," with pure, genuine excitement. They clung to William's legs, gripping the expensive fabric of his suit trousers with small hands that probably had remnants of chocolate or glue or some sticky substance children always carry. William automatically bent down, hugging them with one arm each. But his eyes never left Sophia, who had stood up too quickly and was now swaying slightly, as if she might faint. "Kids, let's go downstairs," Sophia said. and William noted her voice came out firmer than he expected, though it carried a thin vibration of barely disguised panic, like a violin string stretched too tight, about to snap. "Mommy must be waiting for you for your afternoon snack." She took Michael by the hand, with a practiced, fluid motion, evidencing a routine established long enough to become muscle memory. Helen followed without question, trusting, loving Sophia with the ease children love those who truly care for them. As she passed William, the distance between them less than 2 feet caught her scent. Cheap yellow bar soap, the kind that costs $2 and scratches the skin. There was no French perfume he always bought for her. William reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing her elbow in a paternal gesture of, "Wait, don't run from me yet." The touch was light, hesitant, but she reacted as if he'd touched her with a hot irony, anking her arm back with a sharp, violent movement that made them both stumble simultaneously. Her eyes met his for a mere 2 seconds, and what William saw shattered him into pieces smaller than atoms. It wasn't anger, which he could understand and fight, but total resignation, an acceptance of invisibility, as if she had already died inside and was now just operating her body on inertia. "Later, Dad," she whispered, and the word "Dad" sounded strange, like a forgotten language, before rushing down the stairs with the children. William stood frozen in the middle of the expensive playroom, surrounded by Danish Legos and German porcelain dolls and Japanese toy cars that cost more than entire minimum wage salaries. Walls painted light blue with white clouds, hand-drawn by a professional artist who took 3 days. White mahogany shelves loaded with 200 children's books that had probably never been read. 2 beds shaped like race cars with orthopedic mattresses developed specifically for children, 300 thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets. Everything perfect, everything planned, everything empty of meaning when compared to the image he had just witnessed. His daughter, his Sophia, dressed like a maid. He walked to the window on legs that seemed to have forgotten how to work, pulling aside the navy blue velvet curtain with a trembling hand. Down below, through the icy glass, he saw Sophia exiting through the side door with the twins, leading them toward the back kitchen. She walked with her head down, posture hunched, shoulders slumped forward, the universal body language of someone trying to take up the least possible space, wanting to be invisible. Michael tugged her hand, likely making some urgent childish request, and she knelt to his eye level to answer with a patience that seemed infinite, even from a distance. Helen hugged Sophia's leg, and she ran a hand through the girl's curls with automatic affection. A gesture repeated 1,000 times that had become reflex. The children loved her, that was obvious even to a blind man. But why was Sophia here, taking care of Isabella's children instead of being at college? Where was the apartment he paid for? Why was she wearing worn-out clothes and have visible calluses on her hands? The memory hit him like a punch to the gut. 6 months ago, he had called her cell phone 17 times in 1 week. All went straight to voicemail. He'd sent texts that stayed on sent for days before changing to delivered, but never read. He had called Isabella, worried, and she had said in her sweet voice, "Darling, relax. I talked to her yesterday. It's exam time, you know. She loves you and will call when she has time." He had believed her and gone back to work. William turned abruptly, his eyes scanning the room, searching for what? Evidence? Explanations? Something to make sense of this insanity. On the nightstand next to Helen's bed, he saw a child's drawing stuck with tape. 3 stick figures holding hands, 1 large, 2 small. Above it, written in adult handwriting he recognized as Sophia's, "Me, Michael, and Helen." Family. There was no Isabella. There was no William. Just Sophia and the twins, forming their own microscopic unit of survival. As if she had built a world where she was needed, loved, seen, even if only by 2 4-year-olds who called her aunt when it should have been sister. William picked up the drawing with violently shaking hands, and a single question exploded in his mind, too loud to ignore. What in the hell is happening in my own house? William descended the stairs with steps that echoed like thunder in the marble hallway, each crash of his Italian shoes against the cold floor marking the accelerated rhythm of his heart, which threatened to explode inside his chest. His mind spun in violent circles, trying to process the impossible scene he had just witnessed. Sophia, his daughter, his girl, the last living connection to Marianne, dressed like a maid, caring for the twins as if she were a hired nanny instead of their sister. His hands trembled as he gripped the mahogany banister, knuckles white with force. What was happening? How long had this been going on? And why the hell didn't he know? The great room opened up before him, like a set from a decoration magazine. A gigantic Christmas tree, lit with 1,000 golden lights, a fireplace crackling with a perfectly controlled gas flame, Italian leather sofas arranged in a semicircle around the Carrara marble coffee table, everything impeccable, everything expensive, everything empty. And there, in the middle of this Christmas card scene, was Isabella, 37 years old, platinum blonde, wearing a red party dress that must have cost the equivalent of 3 minimum wage salaries, Louboutin stiletto heels, Chanel perfume enveloping her like an expensive cloud. She was organizing the formal dining table for 12, adjusting silver cutlery with millimeter precision, completely oblivious to the storm about to break over her head. Isabella. William said his wife's name in a voice that came out deeper than usual, laden with something dangerous he didn't even recognize in himself. Perhaps anger, perhaps fear, perhaps both mixed into a toxic cocktail. She turned her head, and her face lit up with that performative smile she wore like social armor, teeth too perfect to be natural, injected lips curving in a calculated arc, blue eyes shining with staged surprise. "Darling, what a wonderful surprise!" She dropped the linen napkin she was folding and walked toward him with the measured steps of a runway model, arms already extending for a welcoming hug. But William didn't move, remaining as rigid as a statue. "Why is Sophia here?" He got straight to the point. No beating around the bush, no social games, no polite preliminaries that usually preceded difficult conversations in their sham marriage. The words shot out like bullets, fast and accurate, cutting the space between them with surgical precision. Isabella blinked once, twice, the smile faltering for a fraction of a second before reassembling itself. But William saw the flaw, that microscopic moment of panic that flashed through her eyes like a quick shadow. "Here? Sophia is here?" She laughed, a sound too sharp, too fake. "Oh, how delightful. She must have come to visit us for Christmas. How sweet of her. Don't lie to me." William took 3 long strides toward her, closing the distance until they were less than 3 feet apart. And for the first time in 3 years of marriage, he saw something like genuine fear on Isabella's face as she recoiled involuntarily. "She's not visiting. She was upstairs dressed like a maid, taking care of your children as if she were the nanny. And Michael and Helen call her Aunt Sophia, as if she isn't their sister." His voice rose in volume with every word, echoing off the walls of the gigantic room. "So I'm going to ask again, and you are going to give me a truthful answer. Why is Sophia here, and why is she dressed like that?" Isabella gripped the hem of her red dress with fingers that were now visibly trembling, the veneer of control beginning to crack like glass under pressure. "William, darling, you're exaggerating as usual." She tried to touch his arm, a practiced placating gesture, but he flinched away as if the touch burned. "Sophia came to spend Christmas with us, that's all. She offered to help with the children because she knows how busy I am preparing the dinner." Her voice had that syrupy quality she used when trying to manipulate situations, too sweet, too artificial, like corn syrup disguised as honey. "You know how she adores the twins. She always wanted younger siblings." Lies. The word came out like a verbal slap. William felt something break inside him, perhaps the last string, tying him to the illusion that this marriage was real, that this family was functional, that he had control over anything in his own home. If she's just helping, why was her bedroom turned into your office? I went up there before I saw Sophia, and there is no trace of her. He saw Isabella's eyes widen slightly, surprised at being caught, but she recovered too quickly. Oh well, she said she didn't need such a large room. She preferred the smaller guest room to give me space for my work. Where is she sleeping, Isabella? William interrupted, his voice now dangerously low, almost a whisper that somehow sounded more threatening than any shout. Silence. The ticking of the French clock on the wall marked the seconds as she searched for a convincing lie and found none. Her lips parted, closed, parted again, like a fish out of water trying to breathe. She's in the guest room, I told you. But her voice faltered, lost its strength, collapsed under the weight of its own deceit. William took another step, completely invading her personal space, his eyes drilling into hers like X-rays, searching for the truth hidden under layers of expensive makeup and cheap lies. Before Isabella could build another fragile defense, a voice interrupted from the other side of the room. She sleeps in the small maid's room out back, Mr. Blackwood. Mrs. Davis, the cook who had worked for the family for 15 years, was standing in the doorway leading to the kitchen. Her hands floury from preparing the dinner, her face marked by the wrinkles of 63 hard years, and her eyes full of tears she no longer tried to hide. I can't keep this secret anymore. It's not right, it's not human. Her voice trembled, but there was determination there, a courage born from months, perhaps years of witnessing silent injustice, and finally, finding the strength to speak. William spun toward Mrs. Davis so quickly he felt dizzy, the blood draining from his face as he processed the words he'd just heard. What? It was all he could manage, his voice coming out hoarse, strangled. The maid's room. Sophia was living in the maid's room, in his house, under his roof, and he didn't know. Isabella let out a noise of protest, somewhere between an exasperated sigh and a squeak of panic. But William held up his hand, silencing her without even looking in her direction. His eyes were fixed on Mrs. Davis, silently pleading for this to be a misunderstanding, a mistake, anything but the truth. But the cook's gaze said it all. It was true, it was real, and it was much worse than he imagined. How long? The two words left William's mouth with difficulty, as if his tongue had forgotten how to form sentences, as if the very act of speaking required a Herculean effort he could barely muster. Mrs. Davis wiped her hands on her white apron, stained with flour and tomato sauce, her shoulders slumping in a sad resignation that suggested relief mixed with fear. 1 year and 8 months, sir. The answer landed in the luxurious room like a bomb, exploding in the silence and leaving only the debris of a fragmented reality. 1 year and 8 months, 20 months, 600 days. Sophia had lived like a servant in her own home for over a year, and he, her father, the person who should have protected her above all else, had no idea. William's legs buckled, and he grabbed the side of the Italian leather sofa to keep from falling, his fingers sinking into the soft material as the world spun violently around him. Explain. It was all he could say, looking at Mrs. Davis with eyes that burned from unshed tears or pure fury. He couldn't tell. The cook took a deep breath, like someone about to jump off a cliff, knowing there's no turning back, and began to pour out the truth she had been holding like poison in her lungs for so long. She wakes up every day at 6 a.m., Mr. Blackwood. She makes the twins breakfast, changes their clothes, makes their beds, cleans up their scattered toys. She takes Michael and Helen to their private school at 7:30, picks them up at noon, gives them their baths, helps with homework and plays with them until dinner time. Mrs. Davis continued, each sentence a stab to William's heart as he bled internally. After the children's dinner, she puts them both to bed, read stories, sings songs, stays in the room until they fall asleep. Only then does she eat, always alone in the kitchen, always leftovers from what I prepared for the family. The cook's voice broke slightly, emotion escaping through the cracks. She gets paid $400 a month, deposited into an account that Mrs. Isabella controls. I've never seen the girl with cash in her hand. William felt bile rise in his throat, acidic and burning, and he had to swallow hard to keep from vomiting right there on the Persian rug that cost $80,000. $400, less than minimum wage. He paid more than that in tips to the sommelier at the French restaurant where he dined with clients, and Sophia, his daughter, heiress to a fortune valued at over $200 million, was receiving a pittance to care for her own half-siblings like a disposable servant. She never complained, never tried to reach me. The question came out weak, pathetic, and he knew it, but he had to ask. She tried at the beginning, sir. Mrs. Davis wiped away a tear that ran down her wrinkled cheek. The first few months I'd hear her crying in her room at night, trying to call your cell, but the calls never went through. She thought you had blocked her number. The cook glanced briefly at Isabella, who was pale as a ghost, leaning against the wall, then turned her eyes back to William. After a while, she stopped trying. She said that if you didn't want to talk to her, she had to accept it, that at least this way, living here as the nanny, she could see you sometimes, even if you were just passing by. Mrs. Davis's words embedded themselves in William's chest like shards of glass, each syllable tearing a different piece of his soul until nothing whole remained. Sophia had stopped fighting, had accepted invisibility as the price of proximity, had chosen to be a servant in her own home for the chance, just the chance, to see him walk down the hall occasionally during his rare visits. What kind of father was he? What kind of blind, selfish monster had he become? Isabella. He spun to face his wife, and the look he gave her was loaded with something she had never seen before. Pure, undiluted, crystalline hatred. William, let me explain, Isabella started, her voice high with desperation, hands raised in a defensive gesture, her high heels clicking against the marble floor as she backed away. No, you will be quiet. William advanced, and for the first time in their marriage, Isabella looked genuinely afraid of him, eyes wide, breath quickening, her back pressed against the wall like a cornered animal. Mrs. Davis, continue. I want to know everything. Every miserable detail of this situation. He never took his eyes off Isabella as he spoke, watching every micro-expression that passed over her face, denial, anger, fear, the cold calculation of how to get out of this. She just wanted to be seen. The phrase echoed in his mind like a funeral bell. The cook hesitated for only a second before continuing, as if breaking a dam that had held back water for too long. She sleeps on an old mattress in that 80-square-foot room. No heater, even in winter. She wears the same 3 changes of clothes, which she washes by hand every week. She has no perfume, no makeup, none of the expensive products she used to have. Each revelation was like a physical blow. Mrs. Isabella forbade her from using her own suite's bathroom, so Sophia uses the staff bathroom out back, forbade her from eating at the family table, so she eats alone in the kitchen. And the worst part, Mr. Blackwood, Mrs. Davis paused, gathering courage for the final devastating reveal. Mrs. Isabella told Sophia that if she ever told you about the situation or tried to speak to you directly without permission, she would be kicked out of the house completely. Cut off from the family, no money, no roof, nothing. The cook's voice trembled with restrained anger. The girl was afraid of being on the street, so she accepted everything. Slave labor, humiliation, invisibility. Because in her mind, it was better to be treated like trash in your house than to not have you at all. The last sentence landed like an accusation, and William felt its weight like a guillotine on his neck, severing any illusion he still had about himself. William turned abruptly, walking out of the room without a word, his steps echoing like war drums as he headed toward the back of the house, an area he had never, in 3 years of living there, bothered to explore because it wasn't his responsibility. Isabella yelled something behind him, but he didn't process the words, just kept walking, through the industrial kitchen, past the pantry, the laundry room with its industrial machines, until he reached a narrow, faded wooden door that contrasted violently with the marble and luxury of the rest of the mansion. His hand trembled as he gripped the cold knob, and for a moment he hesitated, because opening that door meant confronting a truth he could never undo, seeing with his own eyes the hell his daughter was living while he traveled the world, closing multi-million-dollar deals. William opened the door to the maid's room, and what he saw stole his ability to breathe for 5 full seconds, as if someone had punched his diaphragm with brutal force. The room was 80 square feet at most, smaller than Isabella's walk-in closet, with peeling walls that had once been white but were now yellowed with time and damp. A tiny window let in the weak, late afternoon light, illuminating the old twin mattress lying directly on the cold floor. No bed frame, no box spring, just worn-out foam covered by a threadbare sheet that was transparent in places from so many washings. There was no heater, and even with the door open, William felt the biting cold radiating from within that forgotten space at least 20 degrees colder than the rest of the climate-controlled mansion. Clothes hung from a makeshift rack made of PVC pipe and wire, only 3 outfits, 2 identical pairs of jeans, 4 plain white t-shirts, 1 faded sweatshirt that William recognized as one of his from years ago. College textbooks were stacked in the corner in uneven towers, architecture titles he remembered buying her when she started. Fundamentals of Structural Theory, History of Modern Architecture, Advanced Technical Drawing. Notebooks filled with handwritten notes, papers printed on cheap paper, rulers and T-squares stored in an old shoebox. Was she still studying? How? When? Between waking at 6 a.m. and putting the twins to bed after 9 p.m., when did Sophia find time to attend classes and do university-level work? On the makeshift nightstand, actually, a wooden crate turned on its side was a half-empty glass of water, a cheap digital alarm clock flashing 6:52 p.m. in red numbers, and a framed photo that made William's heart stop completely. It was the same photo he'd found turned to the wall in the hallway. Him and Sophia at the beach, she at 7 on his lap, both soaked and happy. But this photo was in a broken frame, the glass shattered in a spiderweb pattern as if it had been dropped or thrown. Clear tape was desperately poorly trying to hold the glass pieces together. Next to the photo, a worn-out blue-covered notebook with faded unicorn stickers, a remnant of a childhood she refused to throw away. William picked up the notebook with violently trembling hands, each finger struggling to hold the thin object as his vision blurred with tears he could no longer contain. He opened it to the first page and saw Sophia's handwriting he would recognize anywhere. That round, neat script she had practiced since childhood. Diary of Things I Can't Say was written at the top of the sheet in blue pen. Below, a numbered list with dates. Day 1, April 15th, 2023. Today, Isabella told me Dad doesn't want to share the house with me anymore. She said he needs space for his new family, and that I remind him too much of my dead mom. She offered the maid's room in exchange for helping with the twins until I finish college. I accepted because I have nowhere else to go. The following entries were each more devastating than the last, a chronology of systematic destruction spread over 20 months of silent hell. Day 47, May 31st, 2023. I tried to call Dad again today, but the calls won't go through. I think he blocked my number. Isabella said it's because he asked her to, that he can't stand teenage drama anymore. I cried until I had no tears left. William read that entry 3 times before he could process it. Isabella had made Sophia believe that her father had blocked her number intentionally. He never blocked it. Never. It was Isabella controlling everything, intercepting calls, manipulating phones, building a prison of lies. Day 128, August 20th, 2023. Michael called me mommy by accident today, and Isabella screamed at him for 15 minutes until he cried. Then she told me if I try to steal her place with the children, she'll kick me out without a cent. I don't know what to do. The kids are the only ones who make me feel like I still exist. William felt bile rise in his throat, imagining Sophia 19 years old, alone, terrified, being threatened by a 37-year-old woman who should have been protecting her. Day 237, December 7th, 2023. Today, the twins called me Aunt Sophia, and it hurt less than Mommy because at least Isabella doesn't yell. I turned 19 yesterday. Dad sent a happy birthday text on WhatsApp, but Isabella deleted it before I saw it. I found out from the notification that vanished from the lock screen. She doesn't know I saw. Isabella was deleting messages, controlling communications, isolating Sophia completely from him while making both believe the other didn't care. It was parental alienation on a criminal level. No, it was worse, because Sophia was legally an adult, which meant she was technically choosing to stay, when in reality she was being manipulated, controlled, and imprisoned by lies so well constructed she believed she had no other option. Day 512, June 12th, 2024. I tried to go to Dad's office today between picking Michael up from school and making lunch. Isabella got there before me and told the secretary I was having a psychotic episode and that Dad shouldn't see me. They escorted me out. I've never been so ashamed. William let out a sound that was between a sob and a scream, an animal noise of pure pain. Day 623, October 1st, 2024. I give up. I'm not going to try to talk to him anymore. If Dad wanted to see me, he would find me. Isabella is right. I'm just a bad memory of the mom he wants to forget. At least here, living as an invisible maid, I can see him sometimes when he passes through the living room. It's enough. It has to be enough. The words were written with such force, the pen had torn the paper in places, dried tear stains smudging the blue ink. She had given up. She had concluded that invisibility was the price of proximity, that being treated like trash was better than having no father at all. And all because Isabella planted that poisonous lie in her head so perfectly that it sprouted roots and bloomed. William closed the notebook and pressed it to his chest, hugging it as if it were Sophia herself, sinking to his knees on the cold floor of the miserable cubicle his daughter called a room. Sobs racked his entire body, huge, violent, uncontrollable, tears streaming down his face and soaking the silk tie that cost $200, but was worthless compared to the pain ripping his chest apart. How had he not noticed? How had he let 2 years pass without visiting his daughter personally, without knocking on her apartment door, without insisting on seeing her face to face? How had he believed every excuse from Isabella without questioning a single one? Was he that blind, that selfish, so consumed by work and building a new family that he completely forgot the daughter he already had? Dad! Sophia's voice came from the doorway, small, frightened, broken. William raised his head and saw her standing there, hands clasped nervously, eyes red and wide at the sight of her father on his knees in her room, holding her diary. She was without the twins now. She must have handed them off to Isabella or Mrs. Davis, and for the first time, William truly saw her. Brown hair, longer and duller from lack of proper products, a face thinner than he remembered, deep, dark circles under her eyes from someone who hadn't slept properly in months, worn-out clothes hanging loosely on a body that had lost too much weight. She was a shadow of the vibrant girl he remembered from 2 years ago, and the blame for it was all his. etched in every lost pound, in every light extinguished in the green eyes that used to shine. My girl. The word left William as a confession, an apology, a plea for forgiveness he didn't deserve, but desperately needed. He rose with difficulty, legs shaky, and took 2 steps towards Sophia, but she flinched back instinctively, a conditioned response from someone who has learned that proximity means pain or disappointment. The small gesture of retreat hit William with the force of a speeding train. She was afraid of him, or worse, she didn't trust him. She didn't believe he would come to save her because she had already waited so long that hope had died of starvation. I read your diary. I saw everything. Isabella, she lied to me. She lied to you. She manipulated us both for almost 2 years, and I know, Dad. Sophia interrupted in a flat, emotionless voice, as if reciting facts from a boring textbook rather than speaking about her own trauma. I know you didn't know. Isabella is very good at that, at making each of us believe the other doesn't care. She crossed her arms over her chest in a defensive gesture, protecting herself even from 3 yards away. But it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? You're only here now by accident, because you came home early from your trip. If you had gone to Dubai as planned, I'd still be invisible, and you'd still be blind, and nothing would have changed. The accusation was there, not in her words, but in her monotone, in her rigid posture, in the way she avoided looking directly at him. William felt every word like a precise stab to a different vital organ lung, liver, heart, stomach, truths he couldn't deny because they were absolute. She was right. If he had gone to Dubai, this scene never would have happened. Sophia would still be sleeping on a mattress on the cold floor, eating leftovers alone in the kitchen, being threatened and controlled by Isabella while he closed deals on the other side of the world, oblivious to the hell unfolding under his own roof. You're right, he admitted, his voice cracking. I failed you in every possible way a father can fail. I prioritized work, I prioritized a new family, I prioritized my own escape from the pain of losing your mother instead of being there for you, who lost her too. But I promise you, Sophia, I swear on your mother's memory, this ends today. William took another step, and this time she didn't flinch, just remained motionless as a statue, watching him with eyes that no longer believed in adult promises. Isabella will pay for every lie, every threat, every tear you shed alone in this awful cubicle. And I... His voice broke completely, a sob escaping before he could stop it. I will spend the rest of my life making up for these 2 years. Even if it takes decades, even if you never fully forgive me, I will be present, I will see you, I will fight for you the way I should have from the beginning. The words tumbled out in a desperate flood, a river bursting its dam. Sophia finally looked directly into his eyes, and what William saw there nearly destroyed him. It wasn't anger or hatred, which would be hot, active emotions, signifying she still felt something. It was exhaustion, deep resignation, as if she had already cried so much and waited so long and been disappointed so many times that she now simply existed in a state of emotional numbness, protecting herself from hope, because hope was what hurt most when it died. Words are easy, Dad, she said quietly. Isabella also promised she would take care of me when you married her, promised I'd always have a place in the family. Promises don't pay rent when you're kicked out of your room. Promises don't feed you when you're eating leftovers. Promises don't. Then it won't just be a promise, William practically shouted, frustration and despair exploding through the surface of control he was trying to maintain. He closed the distance between them in 2 long strides and, before she could retreat, pulled her into a crushing hugums, wrapping around her tightly, one hand on the back of her head, pressing her face into his shoulder as he used to when she was a child and had nightmares. She went rigid for 3 seconds that felt like an eternity, her body locked in panic or confusion. But then something in her broke a dam that had held back water for too long, and she collapsed. Her hands grabbed his expensive shirt, fingers digging into the fabric as violent sobs shook her entire too-thin body. Sophia wept. She wept as she must not have wept in months, perhaps years, the desperate cry of a lost child who has finally found her way home, but is terrified it's an illusion, that it will vanish if she blinks. William held her tightly enough to hurt, as if letting go meant losing her forever, his own face buried in her hair, which smelled of cheap shampoo, but still carried the essence that was uniquely Sophia. "I'm sorry," he whispered repeatedly, a broken mantra. I'm sorry, my love. Daddy's here now. Daddy won't leave you alone anymore. Never again, I swear, I swear." The words came out jumbled between his own sobs, two shattered hearts trying to glue themselves back together with paste made of tears and regret. They stood there for an unknown time. It could have been 2 minutes or 20. William wasn't sure because time had lost all meaning, until Sophia's sobs subsided into ragged, shaky breaths. When she finally pulled away, her eyes were red and swollen, her face wet, but there was something different, a tiny spark of something that could, with time and hard work, grow into hope again. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice hoarse from crying. "Isabella will deny everything. She'll say I'm lying, that I'm dramatic, that I made it all up. She always does." The fear was there, palpable, the conditioned fear of a young woman who had been manipulated for so long she no longer believed justice existed. "Leave Isabella to me." William wiped the tears from Sophia's face with his thumbs, a gentle gesture that contrasted with the murderous fury burning in his eyes when he spoke his wife's name. "I'm going to confront her in front of all the Christmas dinner guests, her family, my partners, everyone she invited to keep up the appearance of a perfect family. I will expose every lie, every manipulation, every awful thing she did." He held Sophia's face in both hands, forcing her to maintain eye contact. "And then I'm kicking her out of this house. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. I will sue her for parental alienation, for labor exploitation, and for anything else my lawyers can find. She is not getting away with this, sweetheart. I promise." "And the twins?" Sophia asked, genuine concern cutting through her own trauma, because even after everything, even after being treated like a servant and constantly threatened, she still loved the 4-year-old children who were her half-siblings. "Michael and Helen, it's not their fault. They love me. I don't want them to suffer because of this." New tears were forming in her eyes, this time not from her own pain, but from compassion for the small children whose world was about to be turned upside down. She just wanted to be seen, but never at the cost of hurting innocence. William felt pride mixed with guilt. She was a better person than he was, more compassionate, stronger, even after all she had faced. "They will be okay," William promised, though he wasn't entirely sure, because divorce always hurts children, always leaves scars. "I will make sure they are protected, that they have therapy, that they understand, when they're old enough, that none of this was their fault. And you..." He hesitated, because what he was about to offer seemed too small compared to what she'd lost, but he had to try. "You can choose how much involvement you want with them. If you want to keep being part of their lives, I support it. If you want distance to heal first, I understand. Whatever you decide, not Isabella, not me, you." It was the first time in 20 months anyone had offered Sophia autonomy, had given back the power of choice that had been stolen from her. The dining table was set for 12 when William and Sophia descended the stairs hand in hand, united in affront Isabella clearly hadn't expected, and which made her turn pale instantly as she saw them emerge into the room. The guests had already arrived. Isabella's mother, a 60-year-old woman with a face pulled too tight from plastic surgery, her sister and wealthy husband, 2 of William's partners from the construction firm with their wives dripping in jewels, and even the priest from the church Isabella attended purely for social appearances, all dressed in expensive party clothes, drinking French champagne from crystal flutes, admiring the Christmas decor that had cost over $20,000. The scene was a postcard of the perfect family, but William was about to tear that illusion to shreds. "William, darling!" Isabella tried to smile, but the gesture came out twisted, desperate, her eyes blinking too fast as she calculated how to control a situation that was already slipping through her perfectly manicured fingers. "How wonderful that you and Sophia finally had a chance to talk. Come sit, dinner is almost ready." She gestured toward the table, trying to direct human traffic as if she still had authority, but William raised his free hand, the other still holding Sophia's protectively, and the gesture for silence was so authoritative that even the guests stopped talking and turned to look. Silence fell over the luxurious room like heavy snow, suffocating, charged with an electric tension that made the air vibrate. "Everyone, please sit down. Please sit. I have an announcement to make." William spoke in a tone that left no room for argument, the tone he used in boardrooms when he needed to dominate arrogant executives and close, impossible deals. The guests exchanged confused glances but obeyed, settling into the upholstered chairs around the massive table. Sophia stood by William's side, her body tense as a drawn bowstring, eyes fixed on the floor. Isabella remained standing, leaning against the wall near the fireplace, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. "Some of you know my daughter Sophia," William began, pulling Sophia slightly forward as an introduction, and he saw the confusion on the guests' faces because the last time they'd seen Sophia was 2 years ago at a distant uncle's funeral, when she still wore designer clothes and smiled. The too thin young woman in worn-out clothes, now standing beside William, looked like a ghost of that girl. "Others may be wondering who this young woman is. Let me clarify. She is my daughter, from my first marriage to Marianne, who passed away 8 years ago. Sophia is 19, studying architecture, and until this afternoon, I believe she was living in an apartment near campus that I pay for monthly." He paused dramatically, letting the tension build like pressure before an explosion. "But I discovered today, by pure chance, because I came home early from a trip, that Sophia doesn't live in an apartment at all." William's voice began to rise in volume, restrained rage leaking through the cracks of his control. "She lives here, in this house, for 1 year and 8 months, in the 80-square-foot maid's room out back, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, with no heater, receiving $400 a month to work as a nanny to my children with Isabella." A wave of shock rippled across the table like a tsunami, expressions shifting from confusion to horror in seconds. Isabella's mother let out a muffled sound, her hand flying to cover her mouth. One of William's partners frowned deeply, looking between him and Isabella as if trying to solve an impossible puzzle. "That's not true!" Isabella finally exploded, pushing herself off the wall and taking 3 steps toward the table, her voice high with panic, disguised as indignation. "William, you are being dramatic. Sophia wanted to stay here. She offered to help with the children because she adores the twins. I never forced her to do anything." Tears began to stream, tears she could produce as easily as a professional actress, and she looked to the guests for allies, for witnesses who would believe her version. "She's an adult. She makes her own choices. It's not my fault if she preferred to stay here rather than live alone." The defense was good, William admitted, well constructed to plant doubt. But he had something better than rhetoric. William released Sophia's hand and walked to where he had left her diary on the sideboard near the entryway, picking up the worn-out blue-covered notebook with its faded unicorn stickers. He held the object in the air like a prosecutor presenting crucial evidence at trial. "This is Sophia's diary, 20 months of entries documenting every lie, every threat, and every manipulation Isabella used to keep my daughter prisoner in this house." He opened to a marked page and began to read aloud, each word landing like a judge's gavel. Day 47. Isabella said Dad blocked my number because he can't stand teenage drama. I cried until I had no tears left. He looked directly at Isabella. I never blocked her number. You manipulated both our phones to keep us apart. He turned more pages, reading entry after entry, as Isabella grew paler, shaking her head frantically but unable to form coherent words. Day 128, Isabella screamed at Michael for calling me Mommy and threatened to kick me out if I tried to steal her place. Another page. Day 512. I tried to go to Dad's office, but Isabella told the secretary I was having a psychotic episode. I was escorted out. I've never been so ashamed. The priest dropped the napkin he was holding, aghast. Isabella's sister was staring at her with growing horror. William's partners exchanged uncomfortable looks, clearly processing the legal and criminal implications of what they were hearing. Day 623. I give up. If Dad wanted to see me, he would find me. At least here, invisible as a maid, I can see him sometimes. It's enough. Enough! Isabella screamed, her voice breaking at a frequency that hurt the ears, hands shaking violently as she completely lost the composure she always so carefully maintained. You think you have the right to judge me, William? You who spent years traveling the world while your precious little daughter wasted away missing you. She practically spat the words, all the veneer of the sweet, loving wife cracking to reveal the venom that had always been underneath. She's a reminder of your dead wife. Every time you looked at her, you saw Marianne and ran away like a coward. I only did what you secretly wanted. I got her out of the way so you could have a new family without baggage. The accusation had a barb of truth that hurt, and William felt it, but he didn't waver from his purpose. You're right. I failed her. I ran from the pain instead of facing it. I prioritized work and forgot to be a present father. William admitted every failure without hesitation, his voice steady despite the shame burning in his chest. But the difference between me and you, Isabella, is that I am going to spend the rest of my life making up for those mistakes. I will be present. I will rebuild what I destroyed through negligence. He took 3 steps toward her, invading her personal space as she backed away until her back hit the wall. You, on the other hand, destroyed intentionally. You manipulated, lied, threatened, and imprisoned a 19-year-old girl and turned her into a slave. So here is what's going to happen now. You are getting out of this house tonight. Tomorrow morning, my lawyers are filing for divorce, and I am suing you for parental alienation, labor exploitation, and anything else they can find. 6 months later, the snow fell softly outside, white flakes dancing under the orange glow of the streetlights. But inside the mansion's redecorated living room, the warmth from the crackling fireplace kept everything cozy and safe. The Christmas tree, smaller than last year's, only 7 feet, but infinitely more meaningful, was decorated with ornaments Sophia and the twins had made together. Colorful paper stars, popcorn strings, crayon-drawn snowmen. William sat on the new sofa. He'd had all the furniture Isabella chose replaced, starting from scratch, watching Sophia read a Christmas story to Michael and Helen, who were nestled on either side of her, completely absorbed in the tale of a red-nosed reindeer. She wore a soft red sweater he'd bought her last week, her hair shiny and healthy after months of proper nutrition and care, her face having regained its weight, showing the cheekbones he remembered from her childhood. The last 6 months had been difficult, painfully difficult. The divorce was a bloody legal war that stained the newspapers and fueled gossip in every social circle they frequented, but William didn't back down an inch. Isabella tried to claim Sophia was lying, that she had invented everything out of jealousy, but the diary, Mrs. Davis's testimony, and an investigation that revealed the phone manipulations destroyed any defense she tried to build. She lost everything: the house, a generous alimony. Even custody of the twins was limited to supervised visits after psychologists determined her behavior posed a risk. The twins suffered with the change, of course. They cried for their mother, asked questions William answered with age-appropriate honesty. But child therapy was helping, and surprisingly, Sophia's constant presence brought a stability they desperately needed. And Sophia, her recovery was an ongoing project, not a straight line, but a zigzag with advances and setbacks. She was back in college full-time, William paying not only tuition, but also for private tutors to help her catch up on the semester she'd lost. She had moved into the master suite, the room that should have always been hers, decorating it with posters of famous architecture and plants she cultivated with almost obsessive dedication. She was in therapy 3 times a week with a psychologist specializing in trauma and emotional abuse, processing layers of pain that would take years to fully heal. Some days were good. She smiled genuinely and made jokes. Other days, William would find her staring out the window with a distant expression, lost in memories that still haunted her. But she was here, present, alive, and little by little, she was learning to trust again. William cut his travel back to 1 trip a month, maximum, refusing 3 massive international contracts that would have doubled his fortune. But stolen time, he now knew, was more precious than any money. He had dinner with Sophia and the twins every night at 7 sharp, a sacred ritual that nothing could interrupt. On Saturdays, he took Sophia to visit places she wanted to see: architecture museums, art exhibits, hidden cafes where they could talk for hours about everything and nothing. He had learned the names of her professors, her classmates, the projects she was developing. He had learned that she liked green tea with honey before bed, that she'd been afraid of thunder since she was a child, that she dreamed of designing sustainable homes for low-income communities. He had learned to see his daughter, truly see her for the first time in years. "Daddy, will you read the next one?" Helen jumped off the sofa and ran to William, her blue eyes shining with childish enthusiasm, holding a different Christmas storybook. She no longer called him Grandpa. After months of therapy and careful conversations, the children now understood that William was their stepfather, that Sophia was their older sister, that her family could have different shapes and still be full of love. William pulled the girl onto his lap, feeling her comforting weight against his chest, and motioned for Michael and Sophia to join them. Sophia came, bringing Michael by the hand, and settled onto the sofa next to William, her head resting naturally on his shoulder in a gesture of trust that still made him want to cry with gratitude every time it happened. "Before I read, I want to give you something," William said, looking at Sophia, who lifted her head with a curious expression. He pulled a small, gold-wrapped box from under the cushion and handed it to her. "It's not Christmas yet, but I couldn't wait." Sophia took the box with careful hands, as if it were made of glass, and opened it slowly. Inside was a silver picture frame, identical to the one she'd kept in the maid's room, but new, perfect, uncracked. The photo was the same. Him and her on the beach, she at 7 on his lap, both soaked and happy. But next to it, William had added a new photo, taken last week, the 2 of them in the park, her laughing as he tried to build a snowman that kept collapsing. Past and present side by side. "I can't erase the 2 years you lost," William said, his voice thick as he held Sophia's free hand, the other still holding Helen on his lap. "I can't give you back the time that was stolen from you, from us. But I promise you, sweetheart, and your mother's memory on the future we're going to build together. The next 50 years will be different. You will never be invisible again. You will never again have to beg for scraps of attention. You will never again go to sleep alone, wondering if anyone cares." Tears were streaming freely down his face now, and he didn't try to hide them or wipe them away. "Because I care. I love you, and I will spend every single day proving it, not with words, but with presence." Sophia didn't say anything for 5 long seconds, just looked at the framed photos, her fingers tracing the outlines of the smiling faces. Then she turned to William, tears streaming down her cheeks too, but for the first time in months, perhaps years, these were tears of joy mixed with relief. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. And this time the word Dad didn't sound strange or forgotten, but natural, true, full of a meaning that had been stolen but was now slowly returning. "And I believe you. It's still hard sometimes. I'm still afraid you'll disappear again. But I'm trying. We're trying. And that's enough for now." William pulled her into a hug, Helen, and Michael squished between them, but laughing at the chaotic closeness, and for the first time since Marianne died 8 years ago, he felt something like completeness. It wasn't the perfect happiness of a TV commercial, because scars still ached, and nightmares still woke Sophia in the middle of the night, and the divorce still dragged on with endless legal complications. But it was real. It was a family built not on lies and appearances, but on painful truth faced bravely, and love rebuilt brick by brick, hug by hug, day by day. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the world with a white blanket that hid imperfections. But inside that room, imperfections were exposed, accepted, and loved. "Merry Christmas, my girl," William whispered against Sophia's hair, breathing in the scent of expensive shampoo and safety that he had finally managed to give her. "The first of many we'll spend together, I promise. And this time, unlike all the empty promises Isabella had made, unlike all the intentions he had let die under piles of contracts and international trips, this promise was real, solid, unbreakable. Because sometimes the greatest Christmas gift doesn't come wrapped in gold paper, it comes in the form of painful truths confronted, difficult forgiveness earned, and second chances that are protected with the ferocity of a lion defending its cub. And William had learned in the most brutal way possible that a true family isn't the one living under the same perfectly decorated roof. It's the one that chooses to stay, even when it's hard. It's the one that rebuilds, brick by brick, until love is stronger than any pain that tried to destroy it. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like so more people can watch and reflect on the true meaning of family. Write in the comments, have you ever had to forgive someone in your family? What was that process like? Subscribe to the channel for more stories that move us and make us think about our own relationships. And if you want to support the channel, click the thanks button right below. Remember, it's never too late to start over, to ask for forgiveness, to be present. Until the next story that will touch your soul, Merry Christmas.